This episode of the Topcast is proudly supported by Baron Writer.
At least for me in my teaching, I focus on teaching concepts, skills, and ideas. And then I find pieces that align with those, and then we can give context around them and reinforce those concepts. So for me, the repertoire is important, but it's not the main part of what I'm doing. It's not necessarily the end goal of the teaching. The teaching is about building skills. The finding the right piece at the right time for the students is really important for me.
You're listening to the Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. It's Tim Topham here, and welcome back to the Topcast. If there's one thing that is true of piano teaching, it's that we have no shortage of repertoire, do we? There is so much music out there. There is 200 or 300 years of history, and there's new music being released from incredible composers each and every week, and including last week's podcast guest, Laura Abshir, who was our creator for Top Music Sheets for the month of July. Anyway, we are continuing our discussion and exploration of all things repertoire with today's guest, who has committed the last 5 years of his career to creating a database of all the world's piano music. Now, of course, he's got a long way to go before it's all there, but he's made an incredible start, and we're going to find out all about it today, who it's for, how it works, and how you can get started with it yourself. And I want you to stay tuned to the end because William is going to be giving you a discount code if you're interested to become a subscriber of this incredible database. And we are also going to link you up with some of the music that we talk about in this episode because William has an incredible knowledge of great repertoire out there. And so I asked him later on in the episode, what are some of his favorites, both from the contemporary and classical realm? And he's actually put that together in a link on his database, so you can go and check it out for free at any stage. We'll be sharing that a little bit later in this episode. My guest today, William Perry, is a pianist, educator, keyboardist, organist, and the founder of Piano Music Database, an online platform that helps piano teachers find the best music for their students. He holds degrees in piano performance and pedagogy from Stetson University and Florida State University. As a soloist, William has performed across the US and in Europe. He performs regularly as an electronic keyboardist for large-scale tribute shows, served as the organist for Holy Trinity St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church, and is the collaborative pianist for the Young Professionals Choral Collective. He lives in Cincinnati, where he runs the Woodmont Piano Studio and teaches private piano lessons. Well, welcome to the show, William. Great to meet you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
In actual fact, we have met before because you've presented at conferences, I think, and this project that we're going to be talking about today has been something that you've been working on for many years. So I'm really excited to be able to share this with our audience because I think it's going to be super helpful for them. But before we do that, can you give everyone a little bit of an overview of yourself, what teaching you might do still at the moment, or are you mainly focused on this? What are you up to?
I work in Cincinnati. It's a great place to be a teacher and to be a musician. There's a lot of great music here and a lot of people that want to learn piano. So I do teach. I have a studio of about 15 students right now, and that's my limit for my studio because I do a lot of other things. I'm a keyboardist in a band. I play organ. I do a lot of choral accompanying. So I'm wearing many hats as well as running the database. So I teach children and adults, and I kind of like my lane is sort of like intermediate to elementary and intermediate level students.
And what kind of music do you play in your band?
Yeah, that's a 70s band. So we do a lot of disco and some funk and rock. Yeah, it's a very fun time. I have costumes. I have a stage name, Willpower. I also play a guitar in that band. So it's very fun, but it's also very different than the other side of my music making.
Yeah, that's great to have two contrasting sort of elements of what you do, though, I think. And do you mainly get... Is that a sort of for weddings or special? Like who hires you or where do you play?
Well, we play at a lot of casinos. There's a big overlap between the people that go to casinos and the ones that want to listen to 70s music. We've played one wedding because most people that are getting married are not from the 70s. So,
Right.
but we do have a lot of young people that like the music. Music from the 70s is like coming around again. So like when we play out, young people are dancing all the time. So mainly bars, music festivals, casinos, that kind of thing. Yeah.
There you go. What's the name of the band? Might as well give it a quick plug.
Yeah, it's called G Your Band Smells Terrific.
You have a dry sense of humor. I love it. So you're the founder of a website called Piano Music Database. And given we're talking all about repertoire this month, I thought this sounds like an absolute fit for us. What is the problem this website is solving for teachers?
Yes, so it is solving the problem of finding repertoire. The repertoire for piano is insane, huge, thousands of pieces, and new music being added literally every day. And so if you're trying to get a lay of the land of the repertoire, if you're trying to find something very specific through the thousands of pieces that exist, the Piano Music Database can help you solve that problem.
So I know there would be other teachers out there who've felt this. I've felt it. In fact, I think everyone's probably nodding their head. But why did you then decide to go and solve this problem for more than just yourself?
Yeah, at the beginning, I was just solving it for myself. Yeah. So I teach a lot of different kinds of music, and I often let my students sort of guide the music that they want to play. That's great, but it also means a lot of searching for music. And so I spent a lot of time in the past trying to find music that fit teaching needs and also my students' preferences. I realized there really wasn't a tool that was doing exactly what I needed. So I just started my own spreadsheet of my own library. And then I realized at a certain point that that probably would be helpful for other teachers. So I talked to some developers and some other teachers, and I kind of formed a team, and we started building a website around that database. We built our own search engine that we coded ourselves to be exactly what we need. And it's really grown from there, because I have a team that's spread across 4 different continents now. That's developers, that's also teachers who are doing some of the analysis with me. And we have independent composers and small publishers who are adding their music to the website as well. So it's really growing beyond just my own tool that I was using to find music for my teaching.
And it's grown beyond a spreadsheet. Obviously, spreadsheets are useful, but only up to a point.
Somewhere there's a spreadsheet, but it's much beyond that at this point. Yeah.
So when did it all begin? How long have you been doing this for?
This started in the pandemic. I just moved to Cincinnati, and so I was getting my footing again with a new studio. And I had a lot of time on my hands because there wasn't much else to do. So I was like, this seems like...
The band wasn't playing?
The band wasn't playing, exactly. So there was time to work on this project. And so that's now 5 years. We just celebrated fifth anniversary in May. So
congratulations. So how important is repertoire in piano teaching, do you think?
Well, I think it's really important. Built a whole database around the repertoire, but it also really depends on what you're doing with the repertoire, how you're teaching the repertoire, because at least for me in my teaching, I focus on teaching concepts, skills, and ideas. And then I find pieces that align with those, and then we can give context around them and reinforce those concepts. So for me, the repertoire is important, but it's not the main part of what I'm doing. It's not necessarily the end goal of the teaching. The teaching is about building skills. The finding the right piece at the right time for the students is really important for me.
Yeah, I call this Goldilocks repertoire. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we have in piano teaching. And I'm specifically talking about piano teaching here because the repertoire library is enormously vast. In some ways, it's bad, like it makes it harder, right? It's great that we have all this choice, but it can make things harder. So, and I call this Goldilocks repertoire term because as a teacher, I've chosen pieces that are too hard for somebody and seen them struggle. I've then chosen pieces that are too easy for someone and seen them just not get anywhere with it. What are your tactics for finding Goldilocks repertoire? Apart from obviously the help of your database, I'm sure. But what other options and tactics are there for teachers to find that right piece at the right time at the right level? So difficult sometimes.
It is a really hard challenge because there's several aspects to it. First, you need to know what your student knows at the time. Most teachers know this unless it's like a brand new transfer student, but you know what your student is struggling with, you know what they're currently learning and where their goals are. But the hard part is then knowing the repertoire and having a lay of the land of the repertoire and knowing what pieces are good for a particular moment. So my answer for that, of course, before would be I don't know what the tactics are. Now the tactic is obviously to use the database, but in terms of easy versus difficult pieces in the database, we've leveled all the pieces as well as like identified all the concepts, and so pieces that were like previously unleveled, for example, now have levels. The thing that is important for me is knowing the concepts in the piece and how difficult those concepts are too. Let's say you have a piece of like mostly eighth notes. Your student really knows eighth notes, but then there are a few 16th notes that sneak in or something. Is that you have to have kind of an idea of like, are those 16th notes going to cause a roadblock? Does it happen just quickly and I can go, oh, this is how you do it, and I'll come back to teaching it later? Do I spend a lot of time teaching those 16th notes leading into the piece? These are all important questions to consider when we're doing looking for music. But the main thing for me would be I would choose pieces that I know ahead of time what the concepts are in them, and the student, I would choose pieces that have those concepts the student already knows. So I would try to avoid that, getting in a wrong situation as much as possible by using the database basically to know the repertoire in advance.
So the important thing there, I think you're saying, is rather than choosing a piece, the mistake I think it's easy for us to make is choosing a piece that we love or we love teaching or that we know other students love because it's a nice piece and it's fun or it's fast or whatever it is. Rather than thinking about that, think about the concepts in the piece, how it's made up, and how those concepts align with the student's understanding of the concepts they already know. And yes, we want to build on. So if it's mainly eighth notes, but we want to introduce some 16th notes, then great. If this piece has it, then we can decide up front whether we're going to actually prepare them for that, etc. So I think that's actually looking at concepts. I think that makes lots of sense for teachers. So yeah, thanks for sharing that and just kind of reminding us of the importance of that. Ingredients, I think I've called them before as well. All right, well, you better tell us how the piano music database actually works and maybe some examples of searches and results and things like that.
There are many ways that you can search for music in the database. However, there are three really important ways. First is by level. So like I said before, we have leveled every piece in the database. We go from pre-reading all the way up to master level, which is like Chopin etude level kind of stuff. It's as easy as just selecting a level filter. So that's a very quick, easy way to get to a piece that you need.
Because leveling can be different across the world. And I know that Australian and UK exam boards level differently. I think RCM's slightly different to some in America. So how do you, do you have your own leveling system?
Yes. Yeah, we made our own leveling system. There are 7 levels that go from pre-reading up to master. So that's a pretty broad level. And that was done on purpose because we then have the elements, the concepts that are also leveled that can give you a better idea as to the technical difficulty of the piece. So the broad level of like early elementary, for example, gets you in the ballpark, and then you can use the concepts and the elements filters to then narrow down further the specific things that the student knows. So it kind of goes back to what I'm talking about before. Knowing the level of a piece is really nice, but that doesn't really give you a lot of context as to what is actually going to be difficult with it. So the elements give you that extra context. That is not to rag on them, but that is the problem sometimes with some leveling systems. They are hard. It's hard to understand what makes a piece a certain level. And there may be 2 pieces side by side, and you look at them and go, one of these is way harder than the other one. Or when I've taught it, I've had much more success with one than the other one. And that's a hard problem to fix. But on our website, you can go and look at every single level, and we'll go over what a piece specifically needs to have to be labeled that level. We'll go over all of the different concepts and elements that you will commonly see in pieces at that level. You get representative pieces at that level as well. So we try to give a lot of context about it so that when you are searching, the pieces are, you feel, the teacher, one using this site, feels that they're consistently leveled, that they're getting the same level for each.
It is really hard. I was consultant editor for an exam board series of books here back in sort of 2016-ish. And I think leveling was the hardest thing to do to get the right, because there are so many permutations and combinations and differences and similarities in what makes something hard or easy. I give you credit for trying to quantify it and creating your system. I think it's really difficult.
It is really difficult. I spent a lot of time thinking about it and making tweaks to the system, but that's partly why we have broad levels, because it gives us a little bit more flexibility. If you have, let's say, 10 levels between like an early intermediate level and like an advanced level, that's really a very specific, like the difference between maybe 2 and 3 is very small. So it's hard to necessarily look at something and go, okay, this is 2 versus 3. But if they're broader, like early intermediate versus late intermediate, it's easier to make a distinction between those. And then we can use the concepts that are in them to then dictate the rest of the difficulty with the piece.
I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, if you take it to the other extreme, let's say you only had 3 levels, I could see how it would be really broad. Like, yes, you wouldn't have to be quite so specific. So I think that actually makes a lot of sense, that sort of 7 levels, which is not dissimilar to a lot of the exam boards as well, with sort of eight grades, I guess, as their main sort of component before you start hitting the more advanced work. What are some examples of searches that a teacher could do on the site that, or maybe you might even have records of what most commonly things are searched for?
Yeah, I think the most common ones are rhythms and things like hand positions or 5-finger scales, that sort of thing. The example I always give when I'm at like conferences and trying to show people how it works is like you have a late elementary student who is learning how to play eighth notes, and they really like playing pieces by animals, let's say. Like, so in the database, you can do your level search, then you can go for eighth notes, and then you can add a theme of animals, and it will, all the pieces that come up will have all 3 of those characteristics. But you don't need to just do 3. You can do as many elements as you want on there. You can add time signatures and key signatures to it. We label the mood of every piece too. So if you wanted like a happy piece on top of that, you could do that. So the power in it is being able to combine all the different filters together and really narrow down on a very specific piece.
What you've just heard is the beginning of the composition Paper Aeroplane by Jacob Metelka. This flowing, charming piece is part of the collection Little Virtuoso and offers a fine example of Metelka's compositional style, imaginative and witty, with appealing melodies and unusual colourful harmonies. Contemporary yet highly accessible, it is pedagogically valuable, it's music with real substance. The pieces are wonderfully suited to advanced beginners. So you can discover this album and other titles by Metelka in the Baronwriter web stores, for example at www.baronwriter.us. That's BARENREITER. There you'll also find the complete Baronwriter text catalogue, including the new edition of Fanny Hensel's Easter Sonata. Go and check it out. How many pieces are in there?
Yeah, so there's about 4,000 right now. That is also representative of about 500 different composers. It takes a while to add a new piece, as you might imagine, because we have to read it, we have to level it, we have to find all the concepts in it, we have to count up the number of measures, we have to get the time signature, the key signature. So It's a bit of a slow process, but I have a lot of people, not just me, who are doing these analyses with me.
I'm wondering if AI will eventually help you do that much faster. Is that something you could train?
We are working right now on some software that will help us with part of the analysis. Some of the concepts that we have are really specific. So, trying to think of one right now. Various kinds of, like, the difference between an accompaniment pattern in its elementary state versus like an intermediate version of it. So, something like an elementary ragtime left-hand accompaniment versus like an intermediate ragtime accompaniment. That is easy for like a teacher to understand, but maybe not so easy for an AI. So maybe one day we get to that point. We have a lot of data, and maybe we'll train an AI and see what it can do. But for right now, we are working on some software that can help us identify easier things like rhythms, chords, individual notes, time signatures, key signatures, like that. So we're not using that for the analysis right now, but it is something that we're developing, and that should be coming soon.
Yeah, it made me think of Jane McGrath's book she went through this process, I think, at some stage. Are you familiar with that book of intermediate repertoire? I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah, she's got two books. There's the older version, and then the new one that she just came out with, Piano Inspires.
And the level of detail she's gone to, I mean, it's quite phenomenal. And I imagine you've kind of created, in some ways, a searchable, because it's not, while the content is fantastic, and I really love Jane's work, it's not very easy to search. Whereas you've created this thing where you can go click, click, click. These are all the things I need. Show me the pieces.
Yes. Essentially, when you break it down, we're taking these sort of repertoire guidebooks like Jane McGraw's or the Hinson book and making it searchable. So obviously there are indexes in these books, but the indexes are maybe by composer, A to Z or something like that, which is not necessarily useful if you're trying to find a piece with eighth notes in it or something.
And so at the end, you're going to get a list of pieces. Are you able to download the music, or what happens at the end? Or are you just told where to buy it?
Yeah, so we are mainly a search engine. So we don't host the music, kind of like the way Google doesn't have the websites. They show you the websites and you will go out to them. So when you get to a page for a piece that you like, there will be a recording of it that we found, that we vetted and make sure that it's like a quality recording. There will be all the data about it, including the elements, the image for the elements, and all of the leveling information, that kind of stuff. And then there will be links as to where to buy it. And we try our best to link to the publishers and the composers' sites directly. We link to Sheet Music Plus, Sheet Music Direct, those places as well. We try to give a lot of options for where to buy it. For the public domain works, we'll also include an IMSLP link like directly to that collection.
One of the questions that I see come up in Facebook groups a fair bit is my student is playing really advanced music, but they've got small hands. Is that a search feature you have?
Well, it is not. But we have actually an element for large hands. So I guess we should make one for small hands too.
It's definitely a question that comes up a fair bit.
If I were tasked with trying to find in the database for small hands, which I'll just make a note and I'll add that at some point to the database, but I would probably be looking for pieces that mainly are using like 5-finger scales, where the hands are just like in the C position and maybe they're moving around the piano, but they're just in there. So that's an element that you can use, whereas 5-finger scales, and that would probably get you pretty close to pieces for small hands.
So how often are you updating the database?
Well, I'm working on it every day, basically. There's new music added all the time. Like I said, we have composers and publishers who are just adding their own music too. So we've got that. Our projects tend to be big bulk projects where we're adding like the entire repertoire from a certain composer. So we just got done adding all of Amy Beach's works, for example. We'll also do like a lot of public domain work on our own. I would say about 100 pieces a month are added by us. And then there's the community of composers that are adding music as well.
So I know there are a lot of composers who listen to the podcast. Are you saying that you've kind of got a portal where they can add their own pieces so that your team doesn't have to laboriously go through everything. I mean, they know their music inside out. They can add their own pieces to the database and then you just kind of check it off.
Yep. So when they add it, I'll review it just to make sure it has all the necessary data and is not missing anything. But they can control the whole process. They add their music. They add their own composer page, page for the collection if the piece is in a collection. All of that is free. We don't charge anybody for that. So you just make your account and you start adding your music. We have lots of different composers that have done that. I'll just shout out a few recent ones: Nate Carey, Andy McFarlane, Susan Staples Bell, Velislav Afronta, Elizabeth Swift, Brandon Bascom. These are just people within the last couple of months that have been adding their music. So it's a very easy process. And I work with the composers to make sure that the pages look good and has all the information they need. And importantly, the user is sent to the right place. It's sent to their web store or wherever they're selling the music.
Is there an example of a page or a few bars of the music for the pieces that are listed?
Yeah, for the public domain, many of the public domain pieces, we have gone through and added like a 4-measure segment of it. For some of the non-public domain works for which we have permission to do that, we'll do that. And composers add their own as well when they're uploading their music.
And obviously there's lots of copyrighted ones that you can't necessarily show. So you've obviously explored a lot of repertoire in the last 5 years. I mean, I think you've probably gone deeper than, well, most people out there, I think. So this could be a tricky question, but what would be in your top 10 teaching pieces of all time? I'm wondering if you can give us maybe a few contemporary ones and maybe a few of your classical favorites. Have you got some favorites you can share? I always love hearing what people are teaching.
I do. I have a few that I love. In the contemporary area, I have one of my all-time favorites, and I only found out about this piece through the database, through connections with the publisher themselves. But it's called Black Rocks by Barbara Arens, I believe. It's published by Editions Musicaferum, which is a European publisher, and they've been adding their music for a long time in the database. I love this piece because it sounds like a rock piece, like rock and roll, but it's written by a composer who knows what they're doing and writing pedagogically sound music. It has motion around the piano. It's mostly 5-finger patterns, but laid out really beautifully. And I use it like whenever I have a student who really wants to play pop music, and I'm like, I just need you to try out this piece. It was gone so successfully for me, and they feel like they're playing something really like modern and cool. I love the piece.
That's awesome. Great recommendation.
Another one would be Lupus Ulalat by Jason Sifford. This I use a lot during Halloween, but it doesn't have to be used during Halloween. It's a great piece for kids who want to play pieces that sound harder than they are. It has this really awesome like hand crossing, so it's a great like showpiece. And then at the end, there's this presto, like great A minor scale down, and then a big fortissimo chord at the end. So it's an impressive piece for a recital. The last contemporary piece, I'm sure most of your listeners won't know this one. It's Winter Solstice by Michael Scott. And it's not the Michael Scott from The Office. It's somebody else. But this is a great minimalist new age piece. It uses both hands are basically in one position. It's like the thumbs are sort of next to each other. And the left hand just has a really graceful accompaniment in quarter notes. And then the right hand plays mostly quarter notes, but every once in a while a dotted quarter note rhythm sneaks in. And so it's really easy to have the student align dotted quarter note rhythms because the writing between the right hand and the left hand is so matched up. But that's like a new age piece, very minimalist as well. In the classical realm, the first one I have here is From the World of Legends by Carl Reinecke. It sounds like video game music, and I use it for students who want to play video game music, but I want them to experience some kind of classical composer. It's not a super well-known piece of Carl Reinecke's, but I use it a lot.
Reinecke is like 1800s, though, right?
He was, yes. So he fits when I need a classical.
But it sounds a bit like video game music. I'm going to check that one out. That's cool.
It does. And if you have a student who's really comfortable with chords, like maybe they play a lot of lead sheets or whatever, this piece is really great for that because it's mainly just blocked and broken chords. So it's great. Another one I use a lot is Secrets by Amy Beach. And I love that one because it's fairly simple, very lyrical and melodic, and has just a broken chord that goes between both hands. And it's very easy to kind of outline the chords for the students. It's also great to teach pedaling. And the last one is Tickling Toes by Florence Price. And I use this one a lot if I'm looking to introduce students to a ragtime style. It has a rag left-hand accompaniment, but it doesn't, most of the time rag accompaniments, they're like moving around the piano a bunch, like you're going and then you're coming back up, lots of leaping. So this one just simplifies the left hand out, has a really great right hand melody, and can introduce them to the style of Florence Price, but also American music generally, and of course ragtime introduction. So that would be my sort of off the top of my head, my favorite pieces. Yeah.
Love hearing those suggestions, and we might try and put links to those in the show notes as well, or links to the database. Do the database pages, do they have their own URLs? Like we could actually link to where some of these pieces are? Yeah.
And I can actually set up a list and send a link to
that'd be great.
These pieces if your listeners would be interested.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, we'll pop that on our show notes for today's episode. You've made me think as you've gone through that. I was thinking, do you have search functions for, because we had Amy and Florence, female composers or diverse composers or American music? Because I imagine sometimes when kids are playing, they need a festival piece that's American or ragtime or whatever. I'm sure ragtime would be a search feature. Are some of those other ones included as well?
The composer identifications is something that I get a lot of requests for, and it is very much on our list of things to do. Right now, we are cleaning up the few other things and coming back to that. We have on our list to do search by composer gender, search by composer nationality. You'll be able to search by composer gender and nationality very soon.
And yeah, style, genre, ragtime, rock. I mean, that would all be part of it, I'm sure, already.
Those are already in there. So anything that's related to like the work itself, we already have our search engine completed there. So we're kind of moving to the composer search engine and adding out those filters and data to make that possible.
And as we wrap up, I wondered, have you come across any sort of out there composers or pieces that aren't really well known, but you think our listeners might love to just check out?
Yeah, there's a lot in the database like that. One of my favorite things about this project has been connecting with other teachers and like researchers who are looking into all this like obscure music and looking for a place to share it.
Just because we need more.
Yes, we need. I know that's a really great point. Yeah. But there's been a project in particular by Sue Ruby where she's taken a lot of music from underrepresented women composers of the past, republished them or got the rights to them, or just read through the manuscript and published it cleanly. And that's composers like Anna von Schaden, Lisa Lehman, Margot Vessel, Ottilie Heinecke. I don't know any of these composers off the top of my head, but the music in the book is really great. And there's a lot of opportunities for teaching these pieces. That, as well as all the independent composers that are listing their own music. There's a lot of the time, if you are using the site, you'll run across a piece that you've never seen before. Great.
So it really is for exploration, learning about new composers and pieces as much as I really need this specific piece for this specific student.
Yeah. If you're just like looking to browse and learn a little bit more about the repertoire, this is a great tool for that because we have descriptions about the composers, we've got their images, we've got links to their websites and everything. So you can really kind of use it as a jumping off point for more research.
Fantastic. Well, you better tell listeners where they can go to find out more now.
Okay, the first thing would be just go to pianomusicdatabase.com. There you can sign up for a free account to kind of try out all of the features of the site. And if you want more access, you want access to sort of the more advanced search tools and data, there's a subscription for the PMD Plus that you can sign up for. And if you sign up for that, you can use the code TOPCAST25 and you'll get 25% off for your first year of that subscription.
Awesome. Love that. We'll put that in our show notes. Thank you very much for creating that for our listeners. And I think, honestly, the amount of effort and work and time, and you've got a team, and I know how much servers cost, and I think it's only reasonable that if teachers listening are like, oh no, another subscription, I think like this is really kind of mission critical in some ways to what we're actually teaching. Repertoire is the thing, in my opinion, that keeps students playing. Why else do you learn an instrument other than to play the music? So the better we can get at that, finding those Goldilocks pieces and the ones that really resonate with students, the better chances are that we'll have great retention and really happy students and their parents as well. So thank you for creating this, William. I think I'm really glad I didn't do it because it sounds enormously epic. not how my brain works.
I get that a lot from teachers that come up and they're like, "Oh, this is really amazing. I don't know why you did this."
You're quite mad, but I'm glad someone has done it, and I really hope people go and check it out. So thank you very much for coming on the show today, and look forward to connecting with you at a conference in the future.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Well, if you're like me, you probably want to rush to this website and check it out and go and explore. So I do encourage you to do that. Of course, you can try it out for free, but if you would like to grab a subscription for deeper access and better search results, then make sure you use that code. We'll pop that link to the show notes and also a link to the pieces that William recommended. I'm going to go and check them out myself. That is it for the show this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And of course, if you are enjoying these shows and you haven't recently left us a review or haven't ever left us a review, I would love to read that. And you can do that at any stage by heading to the show over on iTunes, or you can head to topmusic.co/iTunes, where we have put a link directly for you to do that. Should only take a couple of minutes. Just give us hopefully a 5-star review. You don't even have to leave a comment if you don't want to, but it would be wonderful if you did. And I really do thank you for tuning in, and I hope you are continuing to get lots of value from these shows. Next week on the podcast, we are meeting an incredible teacher. Her name is Amber Hammond, and she's based in Sydney. She has, I think, one of the best located studios in the world because she actually overlooks the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It is incredible. And she's an amazing teacher who can take new beginners to incredibly advanced levels in very short amounts of time. And I just can't wait to dive into all of her secrets and just get to hang out with her. You'll get such a buzz from meeting her. That's next week on the show. Until then, you've been listening to the Topcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll speak to you again this time next week. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.